Is everybody in? Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The ceremony is about to begin.
This is very real.
Fantastic.
This drug is dangerous.
Wrong.
You cannot play with it. It's not funny. It's not something to laugh about. Good people don't smoke marijuana.
Shut your little punk ass up.
But the more you hate me, the more you will learn.
Welcome to the Autoflower podcast. My name is Chad Dulaney, your host, who looks good from far, but far from good. I hope you are doing well, my friends. I want to give a shout out to our new Patreon members, J-Rod, Husker Auto Grow, John, CBT Inc., and Anadrol OG. Welcome all of you to the community, and of course, thank you very, very much for your support. On this episode, we are chatting with Mike Angel, who goes by Michelangelo Grows on Instagram. Dr. Coco reached out to me and mentioned Mike had an interest in coming on the podcast, so we connected and started recording, but to be honest, I wasn't quite sure what topic we were going to discuss, so I apologize if this one is a slow starter, and that's not Mike's fault. That would be my fault. I didn't do my homework before I hit record, but we ended up chatting about autoflower genetics, like in general, the importance of breeders like properly creating a photo autocross and overall integrity, because you know it's real popular on Facebook and sometimes on Instagram, but really for some reason all these Facebook groups and these autoflower groups, people for one reason or another always end up with these bunk seeds that are like they grow for like 12 or 13 weeks, and man, they like start to flower but they just don't want to finish. Full Duplex and I talked about that in the answering listening questions episodes that we did, but it's what happens is these people, they end up breeding these photo periods with these autos, but they're only taking them to like F1 or F2, which it's technically that breeding program isn't finished yet. And so there's still, we're getting better, I think, I think the autoflower world in general is continuing to progress and get better. We're starting to really see some really solid, good breeders and stuff kind of come up and surface. But there is an issue out there, and I think that was kind of Mike's intention of coming on the podcast, was just trying to reach out, I guess, if you want to say, to those breeders who may be listening, who are doing the things that everyone's complaining about, and how it's not cool, like in any industry or any culture, a lot of people are out there just looking to make a buck. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this conversation, and let's go ahead and get into it, shall we? Please welcome to the Autoflower podcast, Mr. Mike Angel. I guess let's back up a little bit and just give me like a rundown of how you got into growing, kind of where you're at with it now, and then we can start talking about autoflowers after we kind of get introduced to you.
Sure, no problem at all. Yeah, so I'm an old long-time grower. I've been growing since about 2003, 2005. Got into the commercial game for a little bit, and but nowadays, I really don't. I grow for myself, so I'm all into different kinds of methods and just trying the things that people don't really give themselves time to actually do. I've just wrapped up my 24-hour fertigation project, where I'm leaving pumps on for 24 hours a day. We're never shutting them off. Working on a freezing project, using all the best practices that I've learned from the years of growing. And I started growing because I had some medical conditions that I found cannabis to be really helpful for, especially replacing medications. Like I had this really terrible insomnia in college, and I remember that's where I discovered cannabis. And you get a little bit of cannabis in you and you have the best sleep ever. And it's like, well, maybe you can go ahead and substitute that. And by the time I figured that out, the whole medical scene already had done all the research for me. And I was in LA. I went down into downtown, and you had to go through a certain store, climb some stairs, and voila, there was the doctor. And I was like, hey, yeah, I'm finding that this medication, really works instead of, rather the cannabis works than the medication that the doctor's giving me. And then once I got a hold of what the prices were, because the first thing he asked me was like, okay, well, where do you usually buy from? And I guess I was one of these rare cases who didn't have a guy. I didn't have a dealer. And I was like, well, I don't know. You need to tell me where to go. And there was, now I'm paying $65 an eighth. And, that doesn't go very far. I've always liked growing my own vegetables and eating organic before organic was cool. And so I got into growing for myself and realized, wow, this really does help. There's no reason why this should be illegal. This is crazy. So I got into growing, not knowing how to grow cannabis specifically. I grew with like in a 2x1 with a 250 HPS. I think I picked that thing up like at Home Depot. And then someone was like, oh, look, you got to check out the hydroponic shop. And if you've never been in a hydroponic shop and you're just considering purchasing or growing cannabis, I mean, that is quite the amazing experience. And they all the toys and tools, and you just kind of wonder what everybody else has gone through to get to this point to develop these products. And if you get someone who's really willing to help you at the store, of course they're going to be sales forward. You can really fall down this really huge rabbit hole and just fall in love with the different methods to cultivate a plant. I mean, beyond cannabis even.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So your podcast is pretty, it's kicking off fairly well, huh?
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't. I'm happy with where it's at. But I don't really, I guess I don't really know what that definition of success is. And it's not, I guess I have my own definition. So I'm already happy with where it's at. And I consider it to be successful in the sense that, it's helping people out and getting information out there on a digital platform to people, especially with Autoflowers in particular.
Exactly.
So that's my mission and my goal. So in that sense, it already is successful.
Excellent.
But it's all perception. There's people out there who think I'm just being an immature kid.
You catch that flack publicly?
I have in the past once or twice, like on Facebook, on my personal Facebook, and then the personal messages and stuff too, from a couple of different people. But that's all
that
good.
whole social media thing, the whole thing is very, very toxic. You really do have to culture your own community and follow or allow the people who want to follow what you preach. Dictate that the real response.
Yeah, because you know what, man, that's right, dude. Because my whole life I've struggled with like codependency issues. Not to get totally off topic, but I've always been about, not about myself, about just denying myself, making other people happy, and there's good attributes in that. That's a good characteristic to have. But sometimes it goes too far where you don't give yourself any love and you feel worthless and stuff. And I don't even know where I was going with that, dude. But anyways, they could just fuck off, basically, is what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? Yeah. To make a long story short. And
the content that you're providing, especially with the people that are joining your ranks, I mean, they're no slouches. I'm enjoying a lot of the stuff that's coming on recently. Talking about breeding and things like that. I mean, setting the record straight in some instances. I mean, there's some place for opinion, but where facts lie, there's no debate. So.
Yeah, and it's just there's just, we're humans, dude, and we're put on this, we're born into this earth, and we're just told like, oh, here's the way it is, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, and do it this way. And when you're an adult, this is what you're supposed to look like. And when you're a teenager, this is what you're supposed to look like. And here's what you're supposed to have this kind of car and these kind of countertops and this certain house. And this American dream becomes an American slave machine to where people,
slave to debt.
Yeah, where people where people are just slaving themselves away. They're unhappy. And I just doing what makes me happy and taking care of my family and my wife and my kids, and I do that with purpose and with awareness, as far as my family goes, and they're my number one priority on earth. Right. And there are a lot of people who would look down on what I'm doing or think I'm childish or immature because I'm this 40-year-old adult that has a cannabis podcast.
That's immature. All right.
You know, if we were to maybe take some secret video of our inside personal lives, you know, you may be surprised at how dark yours really is compared to mine. Is all I'm gonna say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not you, but the people
Yeah,
who
yeah.
criticize. So, anyways,
No peeking in the closet there.
yeah, but yeah. So you were like you grew in commercial grows and stuff, huh? Like, where are you located at, man? What state are you
I'm
in?
in California.
Oh,
Yeah.
you are. Okay. So were you working at like commercial grows in California?
Correct. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
what was that
You
like?
know, a lot of the stuff was, geez, you know, the regulatory on that side was almost non-existent. They were probably fairly illegal. I was not versed like I am now in that whole industry, and so I was pretty naive. I know I had a couple of friends get their community, their girl situation rated, but nothing ever happened to them. It was always the owners
Mhm.
who were always charged. They wanted nothing to do with the workers, and I was pretty low. I had an excellent time doing cannabis sales because I was always, and you know, I look back at it now and I was really misinformed because I was really heavy on selling, hey, you know, the indica's for this and the sativas for that. Tell me about your issues. Let me tell you about mine. Really salesy, and I really enjoyed it. But you know, when the raids started coming down, there was a point somewhere around 2015, 2016 that places that you thought were legitimate, like you know, customers would come in and say, "Oh yeah, you know, I would never buy from X, Y, and Z, but I love coming here." You know,
Mhm.
even those places got shut down in like overnight, and people were crazy. They were like, "Hey, you know, I thought this place was licensed," and all they would say is, "Oh yeah, but it's still federally illegal." But yet you would have local law enforcement, you know, involved assisting with some of these raids. And so when that started to go down, I kind of got out of it. Um, I have been in a couple of commercial situations where there were grow rooms. I did spend some time cultivating for them. Uh, Learned a ton, mostly hydroponics, mostly rock wool. You'll see that in a lot of my grows. That all comes from that hydroponic experience. I use Hydroton now primarily just because I'm more of I want to go ahead and reuse my resources, not because I'm in love with it so much, but rather it allows me to just toss it out into the sun, bake it, and you know we can go ahead and with another grow without having to purchase some more stuff. Um,
Hmm.
so
I'm
a
so
lot of my
unfamiliar with hydroponics. I don't even know what you're referring to right there, to
oh
be
okay
honest
yeah
with you.
so the well Rockwool cubes is
Those,
pretty much
yeah.
yeah, it's pretty much spun molten rock.
Mhm.
And then the Hydroton is a clay pebble that's expanded, so it has a lot of air within its clay. It's about the size of a marble.
Oh, those are called
Yeah.
hydrotons? I didn't know that. I know
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about. I just didn't know that's what they're called.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, they're called different things.
Oh,
And I
okay.
think Hydroton is what it was called back in the day. Probably that might be a name brand. I'm not too sure. It could just be called
Gotcha.
expanded clay pellet, is what I
Yeah.
think they really name it. And so, but also, I had a small stint with diatomite, which the mine is closed, so I'm trying to source it. But that's pretty much diatomaceous earth in rock form, and using that as a medium.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so with the fertigation on that, I'm not 100%. I don't have that dialed in yet. It's kind of a new experiment once again. But hopefully, I get to bring that to Instagram
Mhm.
pretty soon once we get rolling on that. So
So
all these water methods.
are you growing 100% hydroponically?
I am.
Oh, nice.
And the only reason why I do that, and now I like the idea of the no-till. I like the idea of the organic stuff,
Hmm.
but I have a really demanding schedule, so I can't rely on any hand watering. I need to make sure that my automated system works, and with hydroponic, I can kind of guarantee that. You know, the pumps are always going to run. I don't have to worry about oversaturation because there's very little water retention, but the air to water ratio is off the charts. I'm not going to have any overwatering, and I
Hmm.
demonstrated that by running a hydroponic system that ran 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Never shut it off except to change the reservoir.
Hmm.
And so I have them all on automatic timers that go through the a cell phone app that I purchased on Amazon, and I can control and set timers remotely, whether I'm traveling between states or I'm just 100 miles up the road, open my phone, see if things are working, check my room statistics. I'm like, wow, it's really humid. Let me go ahead and turn on the evacuation fan, and then just hit the button, and boom, it's automated. So that was a huge lifesaver. And that's kind of coming from my commercial experience, because we used to use those little timers that you would dial in, and then you had to put in like a plug, and then once it hit the proper hour, it would click and it would go on maybe.
Right.
So now that they're digital and they're controlled by cell phone app, they really don't get any better than that. I mean, I think there's some better expensive solutions, but man, having a remote control plug, that's everything to me. Yeah. So I can be away for a number of days and have almost complete control, except having someone physically be there, over the environment, over the feed. It's great.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. You're pretty much set up, unless like somebody launches an EMP or something.
I know that would be terrible. Yeah, I should test that maybe. I don't know. But if that's the case, then I got other things to worry about.
Yeah, right. Yeah, really.
But yeah, back in the day, getting back on topic with the Autoflower situation, we did not have a very good opinion of Lowrider or Ruderalis, which is the strain that a lot of the growers are using to incorporate into their current strains to make them quote unquote Autoflower. We used to talk about Lowrider as a solution to growers who didn't have enough height, because you got to imagine, the prohibition was much stronger in California. People wanted to do closet grows. They only had 3-4 feet to grow in. And we'd say, hey, yeah, you could use Lowrider, Ruderalis, but the THC is low. It's finicky. It's not a great yielder. It's not good. You'd be better off training like a Northern Lights, LS. What do you call it? What we call super cropping now. Or you can LST with a scrog, something to that effect. All under HPS. That was another bigger thing, because now with the LEDs you can get those plants really close to the light bulb. But with HIDs, you really had to be careful because the heat, the plants get up there anyway and they just burn. And yeah, so we didn't have a good opinion. And so when I came back online, because I finished college and I got into a career where I had to drug test regularly. In fact, I still do, but I needed to be able to still smoke my cannabis. So I kind of resorted to microdosing for years. And now I don't have as much of a stringent drug testing protocol, so I got into growing again. And when I jumped online, I saw all these autoflowers come out. I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. And I'm trying to figure out what the appeal was, because from what I read, it was like, oh, we took New York Sour Diesel and we crossed it with Ruderalis to get this autoflower gene. I was like, wait a minute. So you're taking something super awesome like a New York Sour Diesel, and you're crossing it with this awful lowrider or Ruderalis, and you're still calling it Sour Diesel? No, that's kind of like a mix between Sour Diesel and a mix between lowrider. It's totally something different. It's totally not Sour Diesel anymore, because when you breed genetically, you're mixing your genetics 50-50. And if you're buying F1 autoflowers, you're not getting New York Sour Diesel. You're getting something really weird.
Yeah, something just with a little bit of that Sour Diesel in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's only maybe. And that also depends on what particular genetic phenotype you're considering is New York Sour Diesel. So I went ahead and purchased the autoflowers anyway. I needed to just figure this out and see this for myself. Like, this is too good to be true. I was talking to people online. Now that's kind of how I met Dr. Coco, because I was fielding questions about this autoflower and stuff to him, and he had really high expectations from them. They're like, well, they should do this and they should do that and they should do this. And my first autoflower run that I got from a private breeder in Washington, they didn't flower. I had them under an 18-6 cycle, because that's what everybody says. Like, oh, you can run these things on 24-0. They're going to flower for you. It didn't. Yeah. And I didn't know what to do. So I started talking to everybody, and everybody's like, I would say, hey, I got these autoflowers and I'm having them on 18-6. And I've got 2 that have pistols, but the other, they're not doing a single thing, and they're huge. What do I do? And I kept getting the same response from everybody. They're like, well, if they're autoflowers, they're going to flower when, no matter what the life cycle is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, how long do I have to wait? What do I do? And eventually, I just flipped them to 12-12. And sure enough, within about 7 days, they all showed their flower. Luckily, I got like 5 of 5 that were female, and they weren't even supposed to be femme. But right away, that kind of caught me off guard. I was, kind of disappointed. I was like, wait a minute. So we got this whole seed industry. Now, coming from back in the day in 2003, we would have to order seeds from overseas, and they would tell you like, this is an F6, an F7, an F8. Meaning that, that's been back crossed a number of times so that every seed that you get that's a female, the genetic qualities, the phenotypes are going to be fairly similar. Mm-hmm. And then I was reading on packets saying, oh, this is an F1 or this is an F2. You're going to get 2 kinds of seeds. One that's really short, about 1.5 feet. And the other one's going to be like 5 foot tall. I was like, whoa, you are totally marketing bad breeding practices as a sell. And they're doing a pretty good job at it too. But when I got the solution to flip them to 12-12, other people were like, well, you can do that, but you're kind of defeating the benefit of an autoflower because you're lowering the DLI, the amount of light that the plant's actually going to get in a day, and thus your yield's going to be a lot lower. So there seems to be like this really high expectation for autoflowers, increased yield, being able to produce under a tremendous amount of daylight, but I wasn't getting that out of my first run. Mm-hmm. So, but that didn't stop me, and so that's when I got further into it. I mean, it drove me mad, and people were saying, "Well, you got to get good genetics." I was like, "Okay, well, hold on, we're not addressing the bigger elephant in the room." It's like, does everybody follow these standards? And turns out there's really no standards for this, but I did try another run through the Cocoa for Cannabis Autoflower Challenge. And hey, you know what? All of these plants, they ended up flowering on time within like 3 to 4 weeks. I thought it was incredible. But I ended up flowering for like 11 weeks, 12 weeks. And like on the package, it would say, oh, this thing's ready in 56 days. And no, 56 days came. Yeah, there was flowers. But if you take a microscope to the trichomes, they're all clear. So, and as you know, that if the longer you wait, the plant needs to mature, trichomes turn colors, some varieties more than other. It just didn't happen in that time. So I have a feeling that a lot of people who are growing these autoflowers are just taking that harvest date that they find on the package and cutting. And I had to wait, 11, 12 weeks and finally cut. And I still wasn't sure if it was done. It just didn't finish. And to tell you the truth, this was another plant I had to go to 12-12 because it just ended up flowering and then it stopped. And I've never seen that before. Just like, okay, we made our pistols and now we're just kind of hanging out in veg. I was like, wow, did I do something wrong? Did I revert the flowering plant back to a veg cycle? I have no idea what I did wrong. I did the right nutrient mix based on its physical appearance, not based on a calendar. I had no idea what happened, but 12-12 fixed it. So
I don't think you're doing anything wrong, dude. I just think that you don't have very good, like you said, everyone said good genetics, good genetics. But I mean, to be honest with you, that's my first thought is you don't have autoflowers. Exactly. You're not growing autoflowers so far from your story of what I'm hearing. You're growing a hybrid plant that isn't finished in its breeding program.
Correct.
That isn't taken all the way to where that trait is dominant.
So I tried to sound that exact alarm, and it got shot down pretty hard. I almost got the feeling that people knew this about the industry, but it was so hot that it didn't matter. That
what
by
do you
the
mean
time
by that?
That people could figure out this problem by the time the problem became a real problem. Mm-hmm. That it was almost like, well, it's kind of a new game. And the breeders need time to work things out. It's like, yeah, F7 is gonna take almost like 2 years. How long have you been breeding this thing? Oh, this is only its second run. It's like, no, it's like you barely have like 25% of those genetics they're going to carry over. And if you don't have any kind of biology or plant biology experience, or even a college class, or even maybe even high school courses to teach that, if you take a Punnett Square, you should be able to figure out how many of your plants are going to go ahead and actually carry this autoflower trait.
Yeah.
It's probably not even going to be 50-50. It might be super recessive and only happen 25% of the time or less. I couldn't find any data to track that part, but I'm sure someone out there in the internet land knows.
Well, let me ask you this: where were you? So your first run you got from a private grower in Washington, or a private breeder in Washington. Your second run, where you did the grow along with cocoa for cannabis, where did you get those seeds from?
Those were 420 fast buds ordered through Seedsman.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'd hate to say it, man, but that just doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. So I'll give them the consolation. Yes, the plant flowered automatically. That was great. But I got a smaller plant, and I still had to go under 12-12, and it took 11 weeks. So where's my time savings? Why would I grow indoors an autoflower plant? I could see planting an autoflower, say, in December, and somehow keeping it alive with heat and whatever because of the lower light, and then be able to produce cannabis around the year round. But for a functioning, properly ventilated, properly lit 4x4 indoors with no concessions, and it doesn't make sense to me these days. Now I want autoflowers to work. I want to see this
they do work.
I can get in an extra harvest in 12 months.
Yeah,
that would make it worth it if you're going for the yield. But I think the industry needs another 18 months to 24 months to really work out these genetics, and it's just a matter of time. No one's going to be able to speed that up whatsoever.
I think those. Well, I think you should maybe give some other breeders a try, because I think what you're saying, we need another 18 months to 24 months to do. It's, in my opinion, it's already done. You just got to go get the right ones.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Fast buds, I've personally had some bad experiences with them. Actually, if I'm just completely honest, I'm a little apprehensive of talking about it a lot, because this is the Autoflower podcast, and I don't mean to, but transparency is important, and it is what it is. And the fact of the matter is that with fast buds, for some reason, I have sowed probably, I want to say 7 or 8 seeds, and out of those I've only gotten one to actually grow well. Now that's just my experience. There are pictures and documentation all over Instagram and Grow Diaries and these other places where people are getting great germination success rates and they're growing great looking plants. So how they do it and I don't know. But what I do know is that with fast buds in particular, I've had issues with their seeds even germinating, let alone growing out and not having any issues. Yeah. So, that's just, and there's been several other people who I'm friends with who have had the same, and there's several other people who have had great success. So unfortunately for fast buds, it looks like it's just a hit and miss for them. And that's bad for business, if you're in it for a business. Yeah. So,
I think we both want autoflowers to work, if we want everybody to succeed in them. And so that got me thinking, it's like, okay, hold on. So maybe it's me. Maybe it is. And maybe there's something else about the plant that we're just totally overlooking. And one of the things that I noted, now I have nothing to back this up other than personal experience. So you got to imagine that my hydroponic system, involves no soil. It's just free. The roots grow. There's nothing to hold them back. They can have as much room as they want. They got a 5-gallon bucket that most of it is just completely empty, and they can just pool at the bottom and just live happily. Well, for an autoflower, and I can't remember who referenced this, but told me that it may be that the roots need to bottom out to trigger that autoflower.
No.
So yeah, so that told me that the main taproot needs to hit that bottom of that pan, needs to spin around, and then realize, hey, I'm out of room. It's time to produce, which they're not going to get in a hydroponic setup. So I was thinking, well, maybe you can't grow a autoflower in a hydro setup. I don't know. But you're thinking that's Boulder Dash there, yeah?
Well, you can grow in a hydroponic setup. And I only say that not from experience, but because I have friends who do it. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know what to say. And they grow huge plants. So it just seems like you've just got a pretty shitty experience, dude, so far, to be honest with you. Yeah, I mean, it's sad because a lot of people, what I'm hearing from you is very common. This is not new. This doesn't surprise me. I see it all over the internet. People still to this day have a very poor outlook on autoflowers, and that's okay. I mean, to be honest with you, I really don't care. I mean, whatever. I mean, people can hate them, people can love them. It doesn't make a difference to me. But I feel bad for the people who waste their money and waste their time. These people who are on Facebook and they post a picture of this plant that's not even that big and it's been in flower for 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's like that thing should have been done. And it's like, it's just an early flower and they end up having to flip it to 12-12. This is what happens when you have people or companies or whoever it is, breeders, wannabe breeders, whatever you call them. This is what happens when you get people like this who see an opportunity and they want to hurry up and capitalize, in my opinion. Maybe some of them just don't know what the hell they're doing and it's an honest mistake. But if that's the case, then they shouldn't be breeding and selling their seeds. They should be breeding and learning and then sell them later a couple of years down the road. Exactly. But what happens is these people, they think that they're going to take some autoflower and cross it with a photo period. And they're, like you said, like, I'm going to take a, blue dream and make it a blue dream-matic. It's like, well, that's not really, I mean, if you're an excellent breeder, then you could probably get it somewhat close with some similar terpenes, but it's not like you're smoking the same strain. Right. You know what I mean? But what happens is these people, and we chatted about this last episode with Full Duplex, is a lot of these people, they cross a photo to an auto and they get these F1s and they just start selling them, or they'll even take it to F2 and start selling those. And it's like, no, dude, it's not ready. It's not ready yet. You can't do that. You can't do that because a lot of those seeds are not going to autoflower. They're going to have that in between of like what Full Duplex calls like the hybrid auto or whatever he calls it, where it's just going to go into flower and it like just wants to stay in flower until you flip it. That's when you're getting close. That's not like, but people are selling these seeds, man. Mm-hmm. And so obviously, and they buy them from Fast Buds or they'll buy them from whoever else. There's all kinds of seed companies all over the place. Mm-hmm. And someone messaged me the other day saying, I got these seeds from I Love Growing Marijuana. And I'm like, who the hell is that? Like, I don't even know, like, you know what I mean? And then, they spend their money, they spend their time, and they end up with a crappy product, and it sucks. Right. And it really does. But then to contrast that, you've got guys like Daz Mephisto, who with Night Owl Seeds, and he was also a breeder for Mephisto. Mm-hmm. And you've got guys like Full Duplex, and you've got some other breeders who are up and coming too, who are solid. These guys know their shit. You know what I mean? Like, they're not just some flamboyant idiots who are just flamboyant. That doesn't even have anything to do with it. They're not just these people who are just chucking pollen and selling F1s and F2s. I mean, these are people who are really taking it to the next level, So sorry, I hope I didn't jump ahead. And
you're totally in line. You're kind of saying everything I wanted to say. This is really honestly like a PSA that's, hey man, if you're going to get into the autoflower game, meaning you're going to spend the money, you're going to spend the time, do your due diligence and research the breeders. There's plenty of review sites online that will tell you these stories, and I'm sure you just mentioned, like, you have a ton of sites that tell you these exact same quote unquote horror stories from certain breeders and such. But I think I do need to try a Mephisto. I do need to try like some of these other autos that I see perform and go with them. And I just hope that I think they are trailblazing the standard for breeding. And to anybody out there who is kind of breeding their autoflower cannabis, if you don't understand why F2 is inappropriate for sale, you need to stop and kind of understand the genetics and how the breeding of cannabis and how the sharing of genetics actually works. And figure out what you need to do to adjust your process before you flood the market with these seeds that could potentially ruin a really good thing. Because if once you isolate the flowering genetic, the gene, you can do anything you want with it. But I also am of the idea that you shouldn't call, let's say, Durban poison auto. It should be called something entirely different. And then you just need to track the lineage. You can say this plant is Durban poison crossed with Ruderalis.
Right.
And call it something else.
Like full duplex with Mandalorian genetics. He crossed a Durban poison photo period with Ruderalis and ended up crossing, I think, down the line, he ended up crossing it with his Anvil line, a male.
That's a beautiful plant.
And yeah, it is. But he doesn't call that Durban poison auto. That's I think what you're getting at. It's like be like Dan. Like he calls it the Forge.
Yes.
He doesn't call it Durban poison auto. He does it's just called the Forge. And if you want to know what the genealogy is, then you can look and he'll tell you there's Durban poison in it, but he's not going to claim that it's Durban poison.
Yeah. And that's a whole different game. Back, 15 20 years ago, when you went to go ahead and purchase seeds online from Europe or wherever, they would tell you with who the parents were, what the genealogy was. And now, you could get, skunk number 1 crossed with, I don't know, Northern Lights, and then have it be called like Midnight anything. I don't know. It doesn't even matter. Right. The strange people are just got into a habit of just naming things for no reason. But if you were going to cross a skunk and a Northern Lights, the kind of the moniker there was going to be, you called it like Northern Skunk or something like that, just to kind of give heritage information in the name. Now it's just you can call it whatever you want, but that even if you go ahead and change a name, something like Durban poison to one of those, the Forge or whatever, as long as you provide parent information that shows Durban poison X Ruderalis, that we need to get back into that habit so that we can not lose trace of these genetics. I mean, there's I think a couple of websites that are really kind of trying to keep track of what the lineage is. And that's super useful. At least it's super useful for the people who care, because when we keep crossing, we're rushing towards the middle. We're all kind of rushing towards the same hybrid cannabis plant. But if we can keep track of it, we might be able to express a few genetic traits that are that are kind of now lost, which would be unique today.
So I guess just to play the devil's advocate, well, not even the devil's advocate, because I hear what you're saying, but if I'm honest with you, it's like I'm not really catching it all the way, because I'm more concerned about transparency and not ripping people off. You know what I mean? I don't for me personally. I mean, maybe it's just me. I just don't really care what people name their strain. You know what I mean? They can name it Pink Fluffy Rainbows. It doesn't matter to me. It matters if I like the end product or not.
Right.
That's just my personal thing, though, I guess. I'm not really a breeder, though, and I'm not really super into, these old school strains or into, landrace stuff.
I guess the reason why I brought that up was because if later down the line I get some strains from somebody, and if it's important to me to track that lineage, I don't want Ruderalis mixed in there. Because it's low THC, it's low vigor, and it has this auto-flowering trait, and that could be good or bad for me. And if you don't track who the parents are by at least disclosing the cross strains, like sometimes you'll see, like I said, Northern Lights X Skunk 1. If you don't have that, you're just messing with muddled information. I guess it's important to those who maybe are interested in
Who
genetics
it's
and
yeah.
breeding.
So
Yeah.
like for people like you who it's important to, it
I
would
think
be
it's more of a
important.
habit coming from the commercial side.
Yeah, probably. Well, I mean, I get it too, coming from a
Mhm.
commercial side. Like, let's say that's a whole nother thing too, a whole nother facet of the diamond, a whole nother angle. Because if you're in commercial, you're probably growing for, to sell to whatever dispensaries and these storefront places and delivery services. Um, I'm assuming, let's just say that you're in it for that. Let's say you're growing however much, to sell to the local dispensaries or ship it out to wherever. And let's say that you're telling these people order Blue Dream, or these people order Lemon Haze, or these people, something very particular. Because like for me, Blue Dream works well for me, but like the actual Blue Dream, not Blue Dream Addict. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I know that because I've tried it. So. Uh, but I think for like the commercial side, it's like, yeah, because you want to make sure that you're getting what you're ordering. You know what I mean? Like if I order a pair of Nikes or something, like I want to make sure that they're legit. You know what I mean? Like I want to make sure I'm getting what I'm ordering because I'm selling this to somebody else. But I guess when it comes to a home grower like myself, I guess things can change unless you're a connoisseur and you're really into it, and that's okay too.
Oh yeah, that's a whole different ballgame.
I mean,
But
that's okay too. Yeah.
even our home growers who do have product to produce for their clientele that may not be licensed or to a dispensary, who and there's a number of people whose livelihood is based on having a dependable grow. And maybe even by the even stronger token, you have some people who have medical needs who are looking at online reviews and have these expectations, and then all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden they're back at the dispensary because their flowering schedule is off by a month. That could be based on their consumption amounts. That could be hundreds and hundreds of dollars, not to mention the excess nutrient costs and electric costs. So really, it is the same kind of drama that that a commercial grower has to go through, just at a very micro scale. And by that same micro scale, the dollar amounts are still potentially huge. So
Yeah. And I know
better
you made
disclosure.
you you mentioned that, like, if you get like seeds, you don't want ruderalis in there. I mean, if you're buying seeds from a reputable company, I don't like, I guess I don't get that statement. Like, I mean, are you saying that like you've gotten seeds before where you thought they were photo periods and there was accidentally some ruderalis mixed in with it?
Mm. So unless I had it genetically tested, I wouldn't know. But if you
Right.
have any breeder not disclosing the parent strains anywhere down that line, then no one would ever know. And you could have it genetically tested to see where the majority of those genetics fall in line and what the heritage strains are. But I think at this point, that's the only way. If I need all of my plants to flower at the same time and finish at the same time. I can't have one finished 2 weeks early, and I can't have another one finished 4 weeks late.
I
And
think you
that
should
comes
grow
along
photo
with
periods then, man.
exactly.
Yeah, I
Guess
think
what's in the plant now?
yeah, I
In the
think you
grow
should
room.
just stick to photos, dude. Because
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, especially if you're growing different strains.
Hmm.
I mean, even with a photo period though, you can flip them all to flower at the same time, and they're not gonna all. They might, if they're
Right.
different strains, they're not gonna finish at the same time.
Yep. And I have no obligation to anybody. I'm not
Hmm.
trying to produce, and I'm not under the gun. But I could see the potential industry hazard from less than best practices in genetic breeding with this autoflower. Because once these autoflowers really come mainstream and they are yielding and finishing in 56 days, and we are getting that extra harvest in that year on a consistent basis, we're going to be sitting pretty.
Yeah, yeah, totally, man. Yeah, I'm having a hard time reading you and gauging like where you're at with this. I don't know if you're like, are you against autos and you're coming on
No,
here? Oh, okay. I'm
no,
just
not at
trying to
all.
read. I'm trying to read you.
I'm
I,
100% pro auto,
okay.
100% pro photo. I
Uh,
just want better practices from those who are in the
I
game
see what you're
producing the
saying.
autoflowers from us.
I see what you're saying. Yes, and that's totally. I think most level-headed people would agree with that. You know.
There's
I
gonna
mean,
be a
if
lot of
it,
people trailblazing the sour path for us to figure that out.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if Joe Bob over here wants to breed and share seeds with his friends or give them away for free or whatever, like I don't care. But if you're going to be
Right.
breeding and selling, and let's talk about this too, because not only are these people breeding these supposed autos like you've had with your experience and selling them, they're selling them for a lot of money.
Yeah.
Some of these places are like, dude, it's like $10 a seed,
Mm-hmm.
and
That's
it's
what
like,
I pay on an average.
yeah, but I mean, to have it not be like, hey, if you're just a Joe Schmo, or say you're like some, I don't know, like maybe there is a place in the cannabis industry for like a burpee, like
Yeah.
like the seeds that you walk in and you just get 100 of them for $5 or whatever. Like maybe there's a place for that. I don't know, but not with the mask and the facade of being a legitimate breeder, spitting out all these big words
Mm-hmm.
and then providing crap. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like sell them. I'll tell you what, like your seeds, that like the ones that you've had problems with and stuff. It's like, well, those I don't think you should sell at all. But I mean, it's like for some of these companies, like sell your seeds, sell a 25 pack for $5.
Right.
Let people just like, a lot of people, they want to learn how to grow and they don't want to spend a bunch of money on seeds because it's a shock factor at first. So it's like, all right, well, yeah, then go over here to, Autoflowers R Us or whatever you find. And if it's like $10 for a 50 pack, then buy them. That's where I
Yeah.
mean, like that whole burpee type thing, I mean, because there's got to be discretion and accountability in the purchaser too, just like with anything, man. It doesn't have to be with cannabis seeds. I mean, this can be with a house, this could be with a car, this could be with your clothes, this could be your food. I mean, you got to have discernment what you're buying.
Right.
You got to know you got to do a little bit of research. And not to be rude or blunt, and I don't mean this toward you, but it's like if you're not willing to like do a little bit of research about the breeder that you're buying from, then that's your fault. Not
Totally.
you, but I mean whoever's
yeah,
buying.
I get it.
You know what I mean?
And
It's
you
like,
know,
well,
that's kind of the other side of the coin with everybody wanting things unregulated, or there are companies out there that are trying to patent certain genetic sequences, saying that if they do get the particular patents, you cannot sell that particular genetic sequence.
oh,
However, that is the solution to the problem that you presented, that we can have the burpee come out and say, hey, here's Blue Dream for everybody, $5 a pack. Everybody loves it, but you can't sell it and you can't breed with it. And that's a reality
I see
in
what
our
you're saying.
industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So-
what if it was like, here's, some apple cobbler or whatever they want to name it, and they're selling a 50 pack for $10. I mean, and they're not claiming it's Blue Dream.
Yeah, then the burpee, so-called burpee, would go ahead and have it genetically tested, and then have a cease and desist order on your sales. Sad, huh?
Oh, I see. I wasn't looking at it from that angle. Yeah, no, what I mean is like I guess what I'm saying is like a let's say you've got, okay, like let's just take, I just ordered some seeds from Firebuds Genetics. Okay. Autoflower breeder, pictures, documentations, friends, testimonies, all excellent and awesome. So I went ahead and purchased. I paid $50 for a 10 pack. They weren't that much. I just gave them a little extra, just a few bucks extra because their son's going through some stuff. But anyways, so I purchased those. Now, Firebuds isn't. He's kind of starting out. He's not like this commercial breeder. It's just him and his wife. He loves the plant. Seems like he knows what he's doing. And his strain is called Care Bears. And
I've grown that. I've grown Care Bears before. 3 Bears and some Skittle Cross of that. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, did you? Okay. Well, then how did that turn out? So that was from him, from Firebuds?
So that was my third auto grow that I completely forgot about. Uh, and that one actually autoed. That one actually finished on time.
Okay,
Yeah,
well that's good to hear, man.
but I only grew one of them.
Oh, okay.
And so I didn't have a huge. That was just kind of like I threw it in the corner, and
Mm,
it was beautiful color. It almost looked a little bit more colorful than like a gelato.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I think that's cool, but so for someone like me,
Uh-huh.
who I do mess around with pollinating plants, I guess I actually publicly consider myself a pollen chucker. I don't consider myself a breeder because I'm just learning.
That's great.
I like to read about it, like on my free time, just about plants in general, not just cannabis, just breeding plants, just different stuff, and I just like it. I'm into it, so I'm practicing and. But I don't sell. But see, that's the thing is people like who are in my position. Well, I mean, I host a podcast, so it would be really silly of me to go on there and sell those things for 50 or $75 for a 10 pack. Um, but people do though. People do. People will take like what I'm doing and they'll just slap a logo and label themselves and start selling those things. Whereas I'm giving mine away to Patreon supporters, but I'm pretty transparent about what they are, what I
Mhm.
crossed them with, and stuff like that. And so I think if everyone would just practice some decency and common sense, like for me, it's like okay, yeah, so far like they're looking good. The ones I've grown are good. The ones that other people are growing, they look good. They're small. It's a small plant, but if people like it, they're there. And so far everything's looking good, but that doesn't mean that I can go sell those for $10 a piece.
Well, no.
You get what I'm saying?
Well, maybe I would
Well, I
actually.
shouldn't. I don't think I should, and I
Well, see,
don't.
if you think about it, if we just had the conversation about how breeders should take, the time, the 18 months, the 424 months to go ahead and get these strains, so that you've got 2 years of overhead behind you, the packaging, the time it took to actually make sure that what you were selling did what it said,
Hmm.
you need to recoup that. And at that point, if you did things the right way, then everybody should be rushing to pay you $10 a seed.
True.
It's when you
Yeah.
don't deliver that you have those problems. But I think everybody should charge at least $10 a seed. But just think about what you're going to get out of it, even on a poor harvest. It's definitely going to be more than $10 worth. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. Yeah. Um, yeah, that is a good point. Yeah. I just, the other, it's kind of like that burpee mentality too for me, where it's, I get, a lot of new growers, come on here and message me and contact me, and it is nice to be able to like, hey, support the podcast and I'll send you a 10 pack of seeds, and they get to like kind of use them to learn to grow, if you will, or whatever. Or they can, I know a couple of guys want to take them and practice breeding themselves, but they're not going
Oh,
to
good.
sell them or do anything with them, and just stuff like that.
Hmm.
But on the other hand, it's like I understand this stance of like, well, but you're still putting genetics out there that aren't top notch, and I don't know. I get lost in all that, man. And
I
I
guess it
just
depends on what you're looking for. If you're a terpene hunter, who cares about THC? If you got the terpene percentage you're looking for, that's top notch to you. It's not
yeah.
all about the THC. There's so many cannabinoids that are so important that contribute to the entourage effect that if you're just looking for THC, then yeah, then that's what's important to you. But I know I don't. I need to fight
Hmm.
inflammation. So there are some terpenes that, if lab tested, I can make a better decision in my cannabis purchase or
Hmm.
seed selection. So
Yeah, I could
it's
relate with
all
that too.
based on the user.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
could totally relate with that. There's something about the fruity terpenes, in particular, anything with like the lemon smelling terpene, limonene, or
Yeah.
whatever it's called.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that I don't know what it is about that in particular. I don't know if that, the entourage effect of that mixed with, cannabinoids or other terpenes, but it does
Uh,
something to it helps me neurologically because I have Tourette syndrome, and so
ah,
it's doing something there. It's doing something with the anxiety and the tics, and it's very strange. Um, that those fruity, lemony, citrusy type terpenes tend to help me more.
good.
Yeah, it's very weird. So
Well, that's what's all you need. That's all that's important to you.
Yeah.
So 100%. If your stuff is top notch, if you've got that lemonine terpene, I mean, it's hard to argue against that.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, I don't hold that like in my strain that I'm working on or anything. Like it smells like my strain that I've got right now smells like Fruity Pebbles, but and it works well.
One of my
me,
favorite.
Yeah. But yeah, man, but so I see what you're saying, because it's like if I'm like, oh, I need to, really narrow this down, or if my Tourette's gets worse, or if I'm very, very, it's not a deal breaker. Like I won't only buy strains with those terpenes. Like I'll grow skunky strains. It doesn't matter. Cheesy ones, like whatever. They can smell like a butthole for all I care, as long as they smoke good and stuff. You know what I mean? But for me, I would pay. You're right. Like I would totally. I think it's beneficial and worth it to pay $10 a seed if you know what you're getting. You know what I mean? If you know, like this is legit. This is going to have this. It's going to do what they say it does. Then it becomes worth it, because especially if you're, if you have a little bit of experience under your belt, then you go in with a lot more confidence in growing that. Like when I pop a feminized seed from like Night Owl Seeds or from Daz Mephisto, it's like I have so much confidence in that guy that I know, it's like I don't even think twice, man. It's like I already know it's gonna go well. I have all this confidence, I just, germination's always on point. Plants always look good, smell ridiculously good, crazy resin production, THC up to, 26%, like whatever. And these are autoflowers, you know what I mean? So it's like, you're going to get something good when you buy from a trustworthy breeder like that.
Well, keep doing what you're doing with the podcast. I think with the full disclosure of information and getting this out there and just doing what you're doing, man, you are helping to elevate the standards that you expect, that everybody should expect when it comes to Autoflower, and only good can come of that. So right on you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, hopefully you can get some better experience with autos if you desire it. If not, then just keep growing your photos.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk a little bit after, and you're going to send me somewhere to pick up some great autos for the new year. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, man, I would definitely do you want feminized seeds, or do you prefer like regulars?
I prefer feminized. If I do get regular seeds, I do send them off for lab testing to make sure that they are genetically male or female. So that does save me a cost.
I see. Gotcha. Yeah, I would definitely try out either, Mandalorian genetics, or are you familiar with him?
Yeah, I've talked to him on Instagram.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So very looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'd definitely do one of his or some of Daz's stuff. I don't want to say anybody else, because I haven't really. I've grown a couple of Mephisto plants, the same strain, and it was good, but it didn't get too huge and stuff either. So I only want to really point people in the direction that I have genuine experience with, which is Mandalorian genetics. I've grown a couple of Daz's Night Owl Seeds, and there's another company out of Colorado called Morningstar Seed Company, and he's got some good strains too. I'm growing his Indigold strain right now, so we'll see how that one works out. But yeah, man, hopefully you get some. Hopefully you can get yourself some better genetics and some better luck and stuff running autos and stuff, so that you don't have such a bad. Well, I guess you don't have a bad taste in your mouth.
You know what? At the end of the day, I still got yield. I still produce buds, and it's just that when, oh God, you got to understand that I did a lot of research prior to making my first purchase, and I had all these high hopes, and yeah. As soon as I went into this Autoflower mentality, and then I had to go back to photo, and I was like, oh, okay. Not that it mattered, but
That's a bummer, though. Like,
it was a bummer.
even
Yeah.
if you research it and you think it's legit, because then you're spending your time and you're researching it and you're like, okay, it looks good, and pull the trigger, and then all that money and time, it's
Yeah.
such a waste.
Well, we're in the young age, but I really look forward to hoping what you said is true, that have come a long way in the last 12 to 18 months, and I'll be ready to give it a try. I'm committed for the rest of the year, but come 2021, we're going to do autos again, that's for sure. And I'll definitely jump on your coattails and let you lead that way.
Yeah, man, and then we'll have to reconnect and we'll do another episode and see how it went for you.
Excellent. Looking forward to it.
Right on, man. Well, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for allowing me to share my experiences, and keep up the good work, man. We appreciate it, all of us.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that, dude.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Please be sure to follow the Autoflower podcast on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And you can also visit the website at www.autoflowerpodcast.com. Remember to love your plants and love one another. See ya.
The deadly narcotic.
Nicotine, alcohol, good drugs. Coincidentally, tax drugs. Ooh, how does this fucking work?
The deadly narcotic. The dried leaves and berries are ground up and made into cigarettes by a simple hand machine. The deadly narcotic is thus quickly and easily prepared for its market. The sale of marijuana is even more difficult to detect and halt than the traffic in drugs such as opium, morphine, and heroin.
Mr. Nixon, while you've been in Vietnam, it's rumored that you smoked marijuana.
Good people don't smoke marijuana.
Lick, lick, lick my balls! Yeah, say that all the time.
What on God's green earth were you thinking?
The deadly narcotic.
Somebody's asking how long will prejudice blind the visions of men?
Say, man, you got a joint? No, not on me, man. It'd be a lot cooler if you did.